8:35, and recent test scores show that New Jersey students have not recovered to pre-pandemic achievement levels of learning. However, the same state testing results show that public charter schools continue to make significant achievement gains all across the board, but especially for students of color in under-resourced communities throughout New Jersey. Joining me now is Harry Lee, President and CEO of New Jersey Public Charter School Association. Thanks for joining us this morning, Harry.
Thank you for having me, Ken. It's great to be here.
You bet. Well, this is a significant study here. New Jersey and many other states suffered, of course, the significant learning loss in schools because of the COVID lockdowns. A lot of kids just weren't focused on the at-home computer, and they didn't have the interactivity, social skills, of course, being with other students. Where does our state stand in returning to pre-pandemic testing achievement levels now?
Listen, I had a kindergartner during the pandemic. It was tough sledding, and I understand that across the country there were massive losses in learning, and we are still recovering from that. Recently, the National Assessment for Educational Progress came out with a report, and New Jersey still lags behind. We're about 29th in the nation, I believe, in terms of catching back up with the pandemic. And so it hit every single community hard, especially communities that were educationally disadvantaged and low-income families as well.
Well, let's talk specifically then charter school students. How are they faring in New Jersey when it comes to math and English testing scores compared to the public district school peers?
Absolutely. And Ken, I know you know this, but charter schools are public schools. They are
Right.
tuition
In New
free.
Jersey.
Yes, in New Jersey, they are public schools. Across the country, they're public schools, and they have to serve all students. We have 86 charter schools in the state of New Jersey, serving 63,000 students and another 30,000 on waitlist. So there's strong parent demand. And the reason for that is because of the excellent results that charter schools are producing for students and families. We know that Black, Latino, and economically disadvantaged students in public charter schools are outperforming their statewide peers in every single grade and subject. And I have to brag about Newark. I'm going to give you another example here. In Newark, where we have 20,000 charter school students, 80% of whom come from low-income backgrounds, they are outperforming the state average in reading 2 years in a row. And so
I
if you
I
step
mean,
back and
it
think,
seems so
yeah,
unfair then. Why don't we just change I'm sorry to step on you, Harry. Why don't we just change the whole system? My mom was a teacher. She worked years ago. This is in New York. She was in Montessori, which is a whole different approach where and I know Montessori is not practical for the large term because Montessori deals with students who are of different ages working together just based on where their own mental state is. So you could have a fourth grader with an eighth grader, but if they're at the same level, they work together. That's the way that works. I know you can't do that when you're dealing with hundreds of thousands of students, but if the charter school structure just seems to work so much better, what is the reticence? Is it the teachers union? What's going on?
yeah, we would agree with you, Ken, that public charter schools absolutely strengthen communities. And there is a lot of noise, we'd say, on funding, especially, right? Because money follows the child into the charter school. And we believe that our public education resources do not belong to institutions, but they really belong to students and families. And so we do not want to get into the us versus them discussion. We want to make sure that every single child in the state of New Jersey has access to a great school. And that means that we need to grow excellent public charter schools. And part of the challenge here is that the Department of Education holds that contract with each charter school. They run on 5-year contracts, and the department decides which charter schools can grow, and some charter schools that are lower performing may be closed.
So what is the difference? Like what is it? And I know I'm really painting with a broad brush here, but I'm or at least asking you to do so. But what are some of the key differences, if you will, in charter schools and how they are structured and why they're outperforming other public schools academically? So what is the big secret in charter schools?
One piece is that they are the most accountable public schools in the state of New Jersey. On the flip side, they have more autonomy and flexibility compared to their district counterparts. And so, for example, they will have flexibility over curriculum, staffing, and budgets. And in exchange, if they're not performing, they can get closed. So I think the accountability piece is critical. The second big piece is longer school day, longer school year. The more time you have to catch kids up who are behind, the better it is. on average, charter schools are 20, their school years are 20% longer because they have an extra hour of instructional time during the day. That's another 33 days of learning every single year in our charter schools. That's another key piece. The third piece I would say is really teacher training and development. We spend a lot of time, our charter schools spend a lot of time training our teachers and using innovative practices. One key component is embedded tutoring throughout the school day. We know that high impact tutoring really helps. Our schools have figured out a way to reschedule their student schedules and are embedding that throughout the school day and not just after school. And so those are some of the key components of why our schools are doing great.
Brilliant. I want to jump on the first part that you talked about, and that was the longer school day, if you will. When I was with another station, I used to do a lot of work with the Boys and Girls Clubs of Patterson and Passaic. Wonderful organization, by the way. Love them. And one of the things they do, people think, oh, it's just a place for kids to go play basketball after school. No. In fact, they only are allowed to play basketball like 30 minutes if they've done everything else first. They are literally an after-school school. A lot of people don't realize that. The teachers from school districts volunteer their time to come and teach a lot of the classes that are taught in school. So these kids get on a bus after school and they go to the Boys and Girls Clubs of Patterson and Passaic and then literally take more courses that they feel weaker in their school, much like the charter school, what you're talking about, where you have tutoring through the day. This just makes so much sense. Because if a kid is falling a little behind in one subject, it could mess them up in every subject because they are focused on trying to get caught up on that one subject. So then they end up not paying attention to the other subjects. So having a tutor available at their disposal that parents don't have to spend, parents don't have the money to spend that extra money for, and having it right there just makes so much sense. And it's just not fair for so many of these kids, especially kids who are poor, minority kids. It's just not fair. They're already dealt a bad hand in life, and then to have a crappy school or poorly managed school. And I'm not blaming the teachers here. It's just the way the system is set up. It's just so unfair. So the idea, it bothers me when you have the light being shown from charter schools on how to do it right. And then you have people stuck in their ways who refuse to say, yeah, let's go that direction.
Absolutely. I mean, our charter schools are using data to really drive instructional practices. And exactly what you said, Ken, they are differentiating instruction, personalizing learning so that every single child can thrive. And the results are incredible. We have one of the best public education systems in the country. And right now, charter schools, where a lot of economically disadvantaged kids are outperforming the state average. And that is just an incredible testament to the work of our teachers and our school leaders. And we want to continue to keep moving that forward.
Amen to that. Finally, Harry, let's talk about funding. New Jersey's urban districts, of course, called the Abbott districts. They got a huge amount of taxpayer funding per student, but their outcomes have been horrible when it comes to testing and graduation rates. So what level of funding parity do charter schools have with New Jersey public schools? I remember there was how many hundreds of thousands of dollars or $1 million granted to Newark schools years ago. Whatever happened to that money? Remember there was a celebrity who donated, or no, it was Mark Zuckerberg. I think it was $100 million he gave to Newark. Whatever happened to that money? I mean, did we see any positivity from it?
So what we've seen across New Jersey is that when charters are in communities and they grow, a rising tide lifts all boats. And so I gave you the Newark example. In terms of funding, charter schools are getting about $4,000 less per pupil than traditional districts are. And charter schools also do not receive facilities funding. And so that is really our biggest gap. We need to get more money in the hands of our teachers and in classrooms and increasing teacher pay. And right now, charter schools are spending about 10% of their operating budgets on facilities. And so that is really the gap. Charter schools are doing more with less, but we want to see fairness and equity when it comes to school funding.
Yeah. It's just a matter of results. The fact is, doing more with less, it almost doesn't even matter. I think a lot of people would say, look, we'll spend $35,000 a student if the student's going to graduate brilliant and have a future. But we're spending that kind of money more in the New Jersey school systems than in many other districts. It's in the top 10, I know, per pupil spending. And yet we see lower and lower results in the regular public schools. We see all these positive results in the charter schools. I just hope lawmakers wake up and school boards wake up and that charter schools become the model that we can follow so that the students will benefit down the line. Harry Lee, President and CEO of New Jersey Public Charter School Association. Thank you for joining us. Please come back. Do not be a stranger. We want to see you again here on New Jersey Mornings.
Thank you, Ken. Really appreciate your time.
We appreciate you, sir. Have a good day.